T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Let's get ready to sucker!
Diamonds in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the number, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. I'm big time, lot of slime. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of pine. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me, yeah. Big time, big time, big time, big time. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. Lot of shine. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of crime. Running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me. Big time. I got a lot of shine. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of grind. Try and take it from me, must be out your mind. I'm big time, lot of shine. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of pine. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try and take it from me, from me, from me, from me. Big time, number 9. Got it in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of grind. Try and take it from me, must be out your mind.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Power Hour, Tuesday edition. I'll be your host right here in the middle of the 5 square that we got going on here. DJ is out today, out on the road doing some stuff for the company, and Billy Mack's not here, but we got Quinn running the show over there. There we go. Got Coach over here. Got EB down there and got Rob right here. So, gentlemen, how are we doing on this Tuesday afternoon?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
The meats. Smoking
not bad, not bad.
There it is. EB, you didn't have to go anywhere? Your flight was just canceled altogether?
Yeah, so whatever's going on with Southwest, like they canceled like 2,000 flights yesterday.
No job.
Yeah, worker shortage, and they didn't have enough people for towers. And one coworker, she couldn't get a flight at all, and then mine got delayed, so we just pushed it back a week. So here we are, no Orlando, but we'll chill here in Columbia, Ohio.
It's okay. Our weather's not as nice as Orlando, but it's still warm here in September, October. So
look, I'll actually take this over that because it's like 95 down there right now.
Nice. Well, today's National Day, there was 2 of them. The one I decided to pick was it's National Savings Day. So the question is if you could save up for one thing, what is something you'd save up for? Quinn?
Ferrari.
What?
Ferrari.
Oh, Ferrari. Okay.
Any particular Ferrari?
Doesn't matter.
Just a Ferrari. Okay.
What is it? The LaFerrari or whatever. It's like a $2 million car, something like
Well, I think we might be saving up a while for that, huh? Coach?
Yeah, I hate to be that guy that goes car just like Quinn did, but mine would be one of two vehicles. It's either going to be a F650 truck, just love the giant truck, or the Aston Martin Vanquish.
Wow. Two ends of the spectrum on that one. Like we're riding, country style, or you're going,
Right.
you
gotta have a little bit of both.
A little high society there.
You just went like John Denver to James Bond.
That's right.
Yeah.
Literally James Bond. And that's the reason for the Vanquish.
There you go. EV?
Man, that's tough. I'm not going to go car. I think I'd buy my own private island.
Jesus, God, I can't believe you said that.
Is that what you wanted, Rob?
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was going. Secluded island with enough money for materials to build your own house.
There you go.
Exactly. Look, you can have the private island. If not, dude, give me my own place that I can go to whenever I want in like Bora Bora or the Fiji Islands.
There you go.
All right. Rob, is that you're going with an island too?
I wasn't joking. I was definitely going with a secluded island with enough money for materials to build the house.
That's solid.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll be the most realistic one here. I'd like to save up for a pool. We like to have a pool at the house. So that's something real, I think, out of the five of us that I could probably try to save up for would be a pool. So we like to get a pool. So that would be the thing I would save up for would be that. So our Baird Brothers, would you rather? Kind of an interesting one here. I was digging through all those would you rathers, and I definitely saw a lot of the ones that we've done over the last, few weeks or so. But this would be this fun. Would you rather be able to speak every foreign language, or would you rather be able to communicate with animals? So we'll go reverse skate. So Rob, what would you rather do?
That's actually a really good one. If I had to pick, I think I would probably rather go with. I have to go to animals because I was about to say it'd be a little bit impressive if you can order anything off the menu in any language you want, impress the ladies. But I think it would be way more cooler if you can communicate with the animals and then get them to do certain things they normally wouldn't do to certain people that they normally wouldn't do it to. So I'd have to go with animals.
All right, Evie.
Yeah, dude, I'm going animals. First of all, there's animals in every nation, every continent, every country. So if you can communicate with animals, you're going to be able to hear what 90% or 100% of all the different languages are because the animals will just tell you. And I mean, dude, I'd much rather talk to animals because I hate talking to the people half the time.
Coach?
Yeah, I'm going to be the guy that's a little bit different here. And I think that I would be the language guy. I think it'd be really neat to be able to speak any language you wanted. I get a real kick out of watching those videos where, the plain, boring white guy walks into the Chinese restaurant and speaks perfect Mandarin and they freak out because nobody realized that, he understood. Plus, we've all been in those situations where you wonder if somebody that's foreign's like talking about you. I'd be real interested to know what you're saying about me.
Plus, you could yell at the officials in like Mandarin Chinese and probably not get a flag.
Yeah,
and maybe your kids would listen to you if you talk to them in like Italian. They'd be like, "Oh, yeah, man, this one makes sense."
I beg to differ. I saw it firsthand about a week or so ago. A kid did say something in a foreign language, and the official gave him a card for it because he said, "I don't know what he said. I think he swore at me." So, yeah. Quinn?
I would like to talk to animals, mainly because my dog just stares at the wall. So I would like to talk to it and be like, what are you doing? Why? And give an answer.
Yeah, I definitely, and Rob kind of stole it, and I think that's why Coach was laughing too. When I brought this up, Rob wasn't on our backstage beforehand, though. I said 100% I'd like to talk to animals because I'd be like, hey, why don't you go over there and bite that son of a bitch? You know what I mean? Like I would be telling animals to bite somebody or attack somebody or, what's going on? Hey, can you go over there and tell me what's happening? You can get an animal just to walk over. Everybody wants to pet an animal. So you get a dog to walk over and listen to a conversation, and then he comes back and tells you what they were talking about. So I think that would be pretty cool. So,
and we could finally talk about the actual elephant in the room.
Exactly. So Tuesday edition of our show, usually we talk about, the high school football rankings that are out there, and I do have those. But obviously the big story right now in sports, and we won't dive too much into it about what the emails are about, but is John Gruden. John Gruden, former Raiders head coach now, is out because of some emails that he had sent to another executive when he was not in the NFL. He was actually working for ESPN at the time, and he's out. So, I mean, we've all been talking about it on all of our different chats between each other, and it's crazy that some emails that you sent from your private individual account, just because it went to I guess you'd say it's a public account, being that it was his work account that's associated with the NFL, being that Bruce Allen's stuff. He lost his job, and these were 10, 12 years ago. I mean, do you guys think this is right, that it's fair that a guy's going to lose his job over some things that he had said privately to somebody and they're being dug up now?
Absolutely not. It's not even close to being fair, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I don't care who you are. If you're watching this show, every single person that you know in your life probably does the same thing, with the exception of maybe 1%. Everybody says inappropriate things behind closed doors. And when I say everybody, I'm at like 99%. Here's the thing. A lot of people will not admit to saying certain things. Me personally, I kind of take pride on being the guy that'll say a lot of things that a lot of people won't say. And the truth is, people talk about you, and people say some pretty ignorant crap behind your back. And when it comes to something that happened 10 years ago, listen, I'm not condoning anything that John Gruden said. What I will say is this. If you're going to fire, or if John Gruden's going to resign because of these emails, then every single head coach, assistant coach, owner, general manager, football player, shut it all down. Because every single person in that league, I guarantee you close to almost every single person in that league has said something along those lines of the reason he's resigning. I think it's ridiculous. I think this cancel culture crap is beyond absurd. If you gave me some time to actually write down and really research this and actually talk about it, I'd probably sound more educated. But it literally drives me crazy with how sensitive everybody is. But at the same time, let's go ahead and put Eminem and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, everybody, for the halftime show of the NFL Super Bowl, who have said way more worse things than John Gruden resigning for. So that's my take on it for now.
Yeah, and I'm with Rob on this, and basically the last point that he made is kind of the point that I've been hammering, since this news came out, last night or whenever it actually was. The ridiculousness of this is the hypocrisy of places like the NFL and ESPN, and the fact that we're basically going to eviscerate a man in John Gruden now that we're going to prop up and celebrate and cover up for guys that are known to be domestic abusers, guys that are known to be murderers. You've got Ray Lewis in the Hall of Fame. He killed 2 guys. Seriously, where does the double standard end? And when is the hypocrisy finally going to be over?
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm going to catch up on some of these comments from our fans out there. Amo talking about turf field with a nice weight room for coach is something that he would save up for, he said. My wife said either a pool or Olivia's braces. So, yeah, straight teeth on my kid is a good thing. She also said, Coach, can you pull a Frank Costanza and come with me to the nail salon? For those.
Terry, that's one of the first things I thought about when you asked that question. That's one of the first things I thought was Frank Costanza hanging out in the Vietnamese nail salon or whatever.
We're showing our age, Rob. We're showing our age.
Exactly. Michael Page, obviously not a fan of Gruden. Trey Lexus says it's not fair at all, but this is a generation we live in. People are easily offended. Amos saying he'd be fired if his stuff was public knowledge. And it says this stuff is all the way up to 2018. It's not a cancel culture. It's the results of federal investigation.
But it is cancel culture, Michael Page. It absolutely is cancel culture.
Kate saying that we hold Eminem to the same standard of Gruden. And then DeFales. Okay. It says you leave Eminem.
The
Falls.
The fails.
Sorry, I had a spot on my on my laptop there. It says you leave Eminem out of this. I mean, I listen to respond to Kate and them. Yeah, because I think you do hold them to that standard because kids, athletes, actors, actresses, rock stars, rappers, people are looking up to them. Kids are looking up to them. They're listening to their lyrics and they're hearing and seeing the stuff that these guys do. So, Michael Page saying, "How's that cancel culture?" It is cancel culture because you're saying something because of something you said and like how Rob said, it's how we listen. I'm a diehard Raiders fan, and I liked the hire when they brought him back. And am I condoning anything that he said? Absolutely not. No, not at all. Because when you read the emails and see what he was talking about and how he talked about, the commissioner, the players union rep, listen, I won't argue the one he talked about the vice president about, but we won't get into that one. But how he talked about some stuff, yes, that's not the way you should talk. And
we're not holding Gruden and Eminem to the same standard. Nobody is. All I'm saying is, just like Coach was saying a little bit ago, it's not about holding anyone to a standard. There is no way in hell I'm ever going to hold Gruden to any kind of standard when we're literally paying Eminem to say mother F this, mother F that. So therefore, we're not holding him to the same standard. What we're talking about here is the level of hypocrisy, because the NFL is okay with letting a coach resign because of something he said, and then let's bring in somebody that is literally famous for saying something way worse than he probably ever could have. So it's not about holding anybody to the same standard, because I totally agree with you. I totally agree with Kelly. I would never do that. What I'm talking about is the level of hypocrisy, and there is an absolute huge difference when we're talking about this and comparing the two.
Yeah, I disagree with Billy where he's like, Eminem does not speak about race unless he's obviously joking. But I mean, Michael Page saying it's bad to say these things regardless, let alone one of 32 coaches in the NFL. You've held a much higher standard. Where I think they're talking about too is these guys are saying they're going to lose locker room. Like it comes out that he said these things about, some racial things, some things about, misogyny, and then some of the other things that he said. The guys in your locker room now they say you're going to lose the guys in the locker room. And I understand that part, because if you say those things, they're going to say, this is how he really feels. How am I going to listen to this guy and follow him on the field? But in the same token, it's like, where's your freedom of speech? Because they're saying this is a federal investigation. They're investigating Washington and the toxic culture that was going on there. And when you read more about what went on there and what they had to get through, it was terrible. It really was. And it's terrible. But it almost seems like they're like tattletales now, because they found these emails and they're like, well, and it's not the NFL. It's like these investigators are going, well, here, we're going to turn these over. Here you go, Raiders. What are you guys going to do about this now? Because we found them and you've got to do something with this now. And I'm not saying they should have turned a blind eye to it, but at the same time, you're going to put this guy out there and just throw him off the boat and say, well, adios.
It's a distraction.
So I like it. I'm kind of learning a lot more about this as you guys speak about it. I haven't read the emails. I saw the headlines, this and that, but I haven't dove into it. So I'm kind of going with what you guys. So essentially, Gruden is collateral damage.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which I would be curious, because if you're going to target Gruden, which whatever he said, right, wrong, and different, I'm not going to get into any of that because I don't know about it, so I can't speak about it. Then he to me, then he's got to be like just one of the dominoes that falls, because if he's one going down, then you got to.
Could you imagine if they had access to everybody's emails that they thought were private, and not just the NFL? What about the NBA, the MLB? How about your coworkers, your boss, people in general? The problem is, what it boils down to at the end of the day is we now live in a society where everybody's information is at their fingertips. And also what makes it worse is not only that, but we're literally offended by almost every single thing that comes out of everybody's mouth. And if you're normal, the thing is, it drives me crazy because we think about when we were younger. All right. When I was in high school, when I was working down at BJ on fireworks, I mean, you're talking about depending on who hears what, and if it's a joke. If it's a joke, I'll tell you right now, I don't want nothing to do with it. I don't want to talk about it. It was a joke between, let's say, a white dude and a black dude. If they were making a joke, I don't want to hear nothing else about it. If Gruden was being just a racist pig and saying the most ignorant things like that, then of course he's got to be held accountable. But the level of offensiveness by anybody, especially, I don't care who you are, it's almost like they're being brought up in this world now. Listen, if you don't like something that somebody says, you have every right in your body to be offended, to report them, to let the masses know of how ignorant of a person that they are. And I think it's just total BS. And it's just weak, just completely weak in my opinion.
So I think one of the things that's coming out of this, and with 4 of us being coaches on this panel, I think it's really important for us to all have conversations with our student athletes about the dangers of the things that you post online. One tweet, one Facebook message, one Snapchat can ruin a kid's life now at this point. And here we have a prime example of it that we can present in real time. Right now I'm having this conversation with my football kids because here's a real world example of, even if you think it's private, it's not going to be private for long.
Well, 100% on that, dude. I mean, I don't sit here and groom like players who are being recruited or they want to go to the next level. I don't groom their social media. I get on social media and if it pops up, it pops up. But that's always got to be a conversation now. And I even tell them, look, I even go as far as don't even really put anything political up there. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, this and that, like that. Those are your own private views. So like that's just never meant to really be brought up for public people to discuss anyways. So between Twitter and, like you said, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Lord knows what else will pop up in the next 5 years. There's no need for it. And
well, now if you're being recruited by any colleges, what's the first thing recruiters do now? They go to their well, maybe not so much Facebook, but at that age,
they go to your social
Snapchat,
media,
Twitter. They go to your social media. I've had parents actually tell me, because everybody knows if you follow me on Facebook, I'm literally the epitome of the word inappropriate. So the idea behind that is to seriously make people laugh if they're having a crap day. And I've been told that out in public. I follow you on Facebook just to laugh. And that's why I do what I do. Now, with that being said, I've actually had parents message me if I had anything to do with their post of their kid. And I've been asked to take that down, or if I was tagging their kid, because the recruiter is looking out for them. They don't want them to be associated with that. And of course, I just took it down. But, that's the other thing too. And you're talking to these kids about social media. We're in a social media age. So now when they go to step up from high school to college and they're being recruited, they definitely want to be careful about what they're posting on there, whether it be political, whether it be an inappropriate meme, whatever. And, we could say it falls in the line with the sensitivity, but realistically, that has to do with that kid's future. So I'm not messing with that. So that, when you're talking to these kids, yes, they definitely want to be aware of their surroundings when they're sharing whatever they're sharing on social media.
Right.
Yeah, and this obviously isn't the first time that we've seen somebody's social media come back, and this wasn't even, I don't want to call the emails even social media. Like he was emailing to his friend, because when you go back and look at it, like, him and Bruce Allen, they worked together in Oakland, they worked together in Tampa, and then Gruden stepped away and Allen went to Washington, and so they've been friends for decades. And they were just emailing. It's like any one of the 5 of us would email each other. The bad thing is Allen was using his Washington account, which it wasn't public. It was public because it's owned by the NFL and the team, where if he'd have just been sending it from his home, his Yahoo account at home, we wouldn't be talking about this right now, because they would have no reason to go look at that. But because they looked at 650,000 emails from the Washington football team that they're going back and looking at, they found this conversation. But my thing is too, where's anybody else in these conversations? Like, you tell me they're not anything about Dan Snyder or anybody else that's in that organization with the toxic culture that was going on there. It's kind of crazy.
They'll absolutely cover up for Dan Snyder. And the reason is
he's got money. He's either he's a billionaire or he's a very high multimillionaire. And it's just, I look at it and think to myself, it's crazy, to catch up on some of these comments. Brandon McPherson says, Michael Page, I get that. But they said he's always been like this. They're just means he shouldn't have been coaching in the last time. Listen, you go back, like we've all said, you go back and look at a lot of these guys. I guarantee you go back and look at some of these older coaches, because Gruden's kind of like an old school coach. He grew up in a different era, and then you caught were to say stuff and people weren't offended by it, and that's just how he spoke. There's a lot of guys that are out there that are like that. They're just not saying it, like Rob said, out loud. Urban Meyer's a great one too. Amo brings up, what about Urban Meyer? It's more acceptable, and we've talked about this in our chats, it's more acceptable, I guess, to have some kind of infidelities in your private life and have it be
it is
to go out and do this stuff.
It is way more acceptable. That falls into line with everything else. And this is like a trickle-down thing. We could talk about the NFL. We could talk about the court system, because realistically, I'd rather be caught with a murder charge, or I'd rather be caught with, and I want to be careful how I say this without sounding like a complete freak. I'd rather be caught with a pedophile charge than a murder charge. Because guess what? As sick as pedophilia is, and you go ahead and you rape that kid, you're going to get maybe 2 years, depending on who your attorney was, because how jacked this system is. And then, God forbid, if you accidentally kill somebody, you're going down for way worse. Me personally, I think anybody that even looks at a kid like that should be in jail for the rest of their freaking life just to protect those kids. But because of how jacked up our system truly is, that we're going to coddle these guys all the way through. And this is a perfect example. And Aaron brought it up. No, we're not going to penalize. We're not going to penalize Urban Meyer. We're going to go ahead and hang John Gruden because it fits the narrative. Because there's a reason why you're not hearing about that Texas shooting in high school a few weeks ago. If that dude was white, you'd hear it all over the news. If the kid was black, doesn't fit their narrative. That's how it works now. And that is from the media. That's coming from everybody else. They want everybody divided over race. They've been trying to feed it down your throats for so many years now. It's unbelievable to watch everybody fall for this crap.
Them Cowboys are awful good.
Hey, look.
Yeah.
Total offset, but Trayvon Diggs, like, I might have a crush on that dude. Like, I don't know if I've seen a corner like that in the Cowboy system possibly ever. But
yeah,
anyways, that's
so. Yeah,
is DJ telling us to change the subject?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's his polite way of saying we can move on. So we're right about halfway through the show. So before we get off the rails too much, we'll take a break here and we'll come back and talk about our high school football rankings as they came out today. So we'll pay some bills and be right back.
New things happen all day. Some are good, some not so good. In today's complicated world, while you're busy working, playing, and living life, we're busy helping you make sense of the day's news. And there's only one place where it comes together with clarity, context, and accountability. It's 21 News at 6 with me, Madison Tromler, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 6. It's what the day's news really means to you.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, shop with confidence knowing we're ready to go the extra mile for you. With the largest selection of used vehicles in the Valley, backed by the Greenwood Advantage Warranty. Every one of our vehicles has undergone our own 126-point inspection, so it passes the most important inspection, yours. No other dealership has the extra inventory, gives you extra for your trade, and goes the extra mile for you. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the four words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
We're back here on our Tuesday edition here of the Power Hour. So we have our computer rankings out for week 8. Just 2 weeks left in the regular season. We'll start in Division 2, where we have Fitch is sitting at number 8, and you have Boardman sitting at number 12, and they play each other this week. We see Boardman maybe sliding out of the playoffs because they get Fitch this week, and then they get Canfield next week, sitting at a 12 spot there. Is this a must-win game for them this week?
I think the 12 spot is kind of that iffy line right now. When you look down through all the divisions, it doesn't seem like anybody that's sitting right at about 12 or below feels really comfortable yet, especially with that kind of a rough schedule to close the season. This is a big game for Boardman, and I think that they need one of these last two to be really secure in being into the playoff picture.
Well, yeah, especially in Division 2, looking at it, like your 12 through 19 might be your control your own destiny teams, if you want to call it that. Because then after that, it's a huge drop off. A lot of those schools are going to be mathematically eliminated after this week. The fact that they're not mathematically eliminated already, pretty much they are. So that's going to be, they can fall anywhere. If they win against Fitch, must-win game. Is it fair to say it's definitely must-win for Boardman?
I think if they got Canfield next to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say it's must-win yet, because if you look down through, like, John Hayes got a tough close of the season. Lakeside gets Orange and Edgewood. They've got a pretty easy close. Kenmore Garfield has a pretty easy close with 0-8 North and 3-5 Firestone. So it's really going to come down to what those teams behind you do and what their schedule looks like. But I think that Boardman may have done enough to keep them in it. I'm just not entirely sure yet.
So if they win for sure, it should almost solidify them, postseason, or give them, like, if you're doing percentages, like a 95% chance.
Yeah, I would think that one win in the next 2 weeks would make them a lock for the playoffs.
Well, dude, Harding, though, if you lose to Boardman, then you have Fitch. If you lose to Boardman, then you have Harding. No pushover either way.
Yeah, yes. They're not one of our YSN teams yet, but Harding sitting there at 9. They get Cheney this week, but then they turn around and get Fitch. So Fitch has got back-to-back games, and so does Boardman. 2 of our local schools there were back-to-back games that are going to be tough. And Fitch wins one of those 2, they're fine. They're still fighting to stay 8 or above. But then if Boardman can win one of those 2, that'll probably keep them in the playoffs for sure. So
Fitch is going to be in regardless of what happens these next 2 weeks, sitting at the 8.
Keeping themselves in a home game, though.
But yeah, keeping themselves in a home game, the thing that they've got going for them right now is that they've got 65 second level points, and their current average is sitting at a 10.6. Harding, who's just behind them at the 9 spot, only has 54 second level points, and they're sitting at an 8.31 average. So I think that it would take a lot to knock Austintown down, and I don't think it's possible to take them out of the playoff picture at all.
Yeah. You move on to Division 3, and our highest ranked team there is sitting in the 5 spot, and that's Hubbard. Canfield at 6. And then you move all the way down to 16, which is Niles. After that, Cheney's at 18, Howland 19. So, they're on the outside looking in right now. But again, Cheney, could get some points out of Harding if they could pull one off there. But Niles, looking at Niles, they're sitting 4-3. And listen, they get Hubbard this week. So, and then they're going to end the season with they're going to end with Girard. So they're not going to get very many points unless they can pull an upset this week. Yeah, could you see Niles obviously sliding out, and really the other top 2 being Hubbard and Canfield do you see them sliding out of a home game?
I think that, with Niles, it's a situation like EB said, they control their own destiny at this point. 2 wins obviously gets them in and probably moves them up out of the 16 seed position, maybe as high as 12, maybe as high as 11 or 12. With the other 2, with Hubbard and Canfield, I think that they're both locked in as home games at this point, both sitting at that 16 point something average. I think it'd take a ton to get them moved down 2, 3, 4 spots and out of a home game.
Dude, that's a gauntlet. We said this other day that's just a gauntlet. Dover, Chardon, Kenston, Aurora, Hubbard, Canfield. I mean, Steubenville, which is generally
no pushover.
A blue blood.
Streetsboro. We've seen Streetsboro locally a couple times too. So
how would you feel with St. V's is going to be traveling
at the 11 seed?
Yeah.
That's.
Well, and don't look past, New Philly at the 13 spot, or, Ravenna's been playing really good ball lately down there at 14. That's a murderer's row region.
Yeah. And really, you look at like a lot of our schools, especially if they're sitting in the top 10. I mean, they're all these are going to be. We move on to Division 4, and your top spot being West Branch. West Branch sitting at 1, Ursuline sitting at 2. Then you drop down to Salem at 7, Beaver Local at 9, Poland at 11, Girard at 13. And then, after that, you're outside looking in as Struthers right now sitting at 4 and 4. But, you look at those current averages, West Branch is at an 18.9 and Ursuline's at a 15. So West Branch really, you're definitely not moving out of the top 4. And it would probably have to take, 2 back-to-back losses, maybe even to move out of the 1 spot.
Look, I mean, they have a 0-8 Minerva. They're not going to get anything from them this week. I mean, they scored 53 points before halftime. When Salem played Minerva, I think they scored 42 in the first quarter. I would much expect West Branch to do the same thing. Probably the perfect game that you want going into the Week 10 rival with Salem, because they're going to be able to rest those starters and give some of these younger guys reps and whatnot. And, for Salem, you have 2 huge games. You win these next 2 and you might jump up into the top 4. You drop these next 2 and you could be slipping down to that 15-16.
I think when you look at this region, Ursuline's sitting right where they want to be, aren't they? I mean, I don't think they're going to actually, I'm going to go ahead and predict that there's no way that they're going to overtake West Branch. When you look at the current averages right now, West Branch is at 18, almost a 19, and Ursuline's at a 15. And those level 2 points, West Branch is 31 level 2 points ahead of Ursuline. But I think that's the spot Ursuline wants to be in, is that 2 seed. They're going to get a little bit better of a game in the first round. The second round, they're going to get tested. But, what a team that Ursuline team is. And I think, them and West Branch are on a collision course for the regional final there.
And you look at them too. I mean, they could slip a little bit. They're going to get their next 2 games are against teams that are well below 500. So and that's not going to help them out too much. But I mean, they're only hundredths of a point below or above Villa Angelo St. Joseph. So I mean, they could maybe slide around that 2-3 spot. But again, I think you agree. I agree with you. If they stay the 2-3 spot, they're okay with that. They don't want to go to 4 because then in your regional semi, you're going to see the 1 seed. Where if you stay around that 2-3 spot, listen, it's 6 in one, half dozen in the other that you're sitting there with the team. So
VLSJ, they just have a murderer's row to close. They've got to close with Notre Dame Cathedral Latin at 4 and 4. Who's sitting, middle of the pack in that D3 Region 9. And then they've got to close the season with Padua Franciscan, who in D3 is 7 and 1. So that's going to be a tough close for VASJ.
Yeah. And if they could pull off one of those wins, then, maybe they get some points and they slide around. So, that's in D4 where we're at. You move over to D5 and, things haven't changed too much here. You still got, everybody talks about Kirtland sitting at 1. And I think now looking at this, even if South Range sitting at 2, South Range at 2, then you move down to Garrettsville sitting at 4. Then you got Edison sitting at 11, Crestview at 12, Liberty at 14, and then Jefferson sitting at 17. And Jefferson 3 at 5 on the outside looking in. But they're going to get a good polling team this Friday at home, and then they're going to end the season with Lakeview, and Lakeview most likely will come into that still with no wins, and that's not going to help them too much. But looking back up at the top, just like in Division 4, like we just talked about with West Branch, I don't know. It would be really tough, I think, for South Range to catch Kirtland. They're 4 points behind them. And even with getting those points from Hubbard, who would be undefeated at the time, I don't think that would be enough to jump them there. But I think, though, that they're okay with that, too.
Well, yeah, that's 6 one way, half a dozen another at that point. If you're 1 or you're 2, you're separate ways. I mean, the most interesting in that region, did that canceled game last week help Crestview?
Absolutely.
Because they're sitting at 12 and they have 2 very winnable games. I don't think it jumps them up to where they can host.
No, they get Champion and Newton Falls, both teams at 2 and 6. And that's the thing, like you said, EB, they're 3 and 4, and they're a 12 seed. Where you look down and say, like, at Liberty's 5 and 3, and they're at a 14 seed. So, that, and everybody's talked about this, and that's kind of one of the reasons you look at the top of this region. Kirtland's sitting up there so nice. They're 7-0. They have a canceled game, and so now your divisor is shifted. 89. And so now you don't have to worry about that. And that's where some teams are arguing it's not fair. But listen, when the state says all you got to do is play 5 games, who cares? Everybody's, now you got a chance to get in there. But, you're looking at the one thing I was going to disagree a little bit with you there, EB, is you said, if you're 1 or you're the 2. I think South Range is sitting like Ursuline going, listen, we're okay being the 2, maybe even the 3. Yeah. Because if you're the 1, you got to see Garfield most likely, because Garrettsville, I mean, they've got a Brookfield team that we just talked about, yesterday as being a team that we were all like, stalked down on a little bit because they got just shut out. And then, you get Liberty at the end there too, which is a team that's hovering around there at that 4th spot in the playoffs. So do you really want to see Garrettsville in a semifinal, or would you rather see them in a final? So I think South Range is happy right now being that 2/3 if they would get there, but I think they're almost 3 points up on Garraway too. So
if you're South Range, you want Kirtland to play Garrettsville in that semi, because Garrettsville ain't going to be no pushover for anyone.
And that's going to be a physical game.
Oh, that's bring the wood, because there's going to be some beatings somewhere. Yeah. It's like you said, physical would be the epitome of the name of that game. Like, it's just going to be smash mouth football every which way.
Pack the extra chin straps.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So, and that's the thing. You look at where that's going to set up. Crestview is most likely obviously going to go on the road being a 12, and they'd be looking at either Bel Air, maybe even Southeast. But that's the thing too. Southeast, we've seen them a couple times this year with some of our teams. Do they want to see them? I mean, because Southeast is taking care of business as well. But it'll be some interesting matchups here in the next couple weeks, because how these things start shaking out. We'll move on to D6, and sitting there at the top is Springfield, and not by much above Columbia Station. They're only like hundredths of a point above them. But then you got LeBray sitting at 3, Brookfield at 6, Western Reserve at 11, United at 12, and Mineral Ridge sitting on that teetering spot there at the 16, being at 3 and 4. And they get Lowville this week. So this is and they get Waterloo the week after that. So those are 2 games that Mineral Ridge really needs to come through on to keep themselves in the playoffs. I think for sure they control their
and I don't know how it would work out for them, but I mean, you can even Newton Falls isn't out of it. They're at the 18 right now. They would definitely need some things to go in their favor But hey,
well, I think that last game of the season, there, AB, they play Crestview.
Right.
You know, if you could pull off that win against Crestview, now all of a sudden that's going to give you some points because they get Campbell this week, who's 1-7. But yeah, I mean Newton Falls, because Middle Ridge is at a 2.99 and Newton Falls is at a 2.80, so not that far out of reach.
That's the question with Newton Falls is: are there enough secondary points, second level points there to get them over the hump, even with 2 wins? You know, I'd be real interested to talk to one of the math guys, like a Joe Idle or somebody, you know, a Drew Pastor that, you know, has all kinds of algorithms and things, and find out, you know, what their predictive software says. Is there even an opportunity for them to get there with the second level points?
Yeah. And then the question is too, is you fight your way in if you're Middle Ridge and Newton Falls and you stay at 16, and hey, guess what? Your consolation prize is Springfield in the first round. So it's like, you know, goodness.
Springfield and Columbia Station are neck and neck there for the 1 seed. It's
absolutely.
Springfield must have just jumped them this week.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem that Springfield runs into is the secondary points again, with, you know, the closing stretch of the schedule here for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they finish up. Springfield finishes up. They got Jackson Milton this week, and then, Coach, you get them at the end of the year there. So, I mean, they need to win out and then hope that Columbia kind of like doesn't win against one of their teams or doesn't get those points from somebody else.
I hate to say it, but I almost wonder if the top part of this region would rather be the 2 seed than the 4 seed, because – I'm sorry, the 2 seed than the 1 seed.
Mogador.
Because, yeah, Mogador's laying down there at number 4 right now. Do you really want to see them in the semifinal?
And they've got a 2-point lead over Norwayne. So, I mean, they're definitely probably going to sit there in that 4 spot, and they're going to host. And
either 4 or 3.
But LeBray, too. I mean, you know, LeBray's sitting right there as well. So, I mean, it's the 3-4 spot right now. You don't want to see them too soon. You move over to D7. In our region that we have there, the top team there is going to be in the 7 spot, which is JFK. Then you have Lowville at 8, Valley Christian at 10. The Bombers sitting there in the 12 spot, and then Wellsville right now on the outside looking in at 17. And I got to think, looking at the points, McDonald would probably be too far out. I mean, they get Waterloo and they get Jackson Milton at the end of the year, but McDonald could be one of those. They'd have to win both of those and hope for some help at the top to get out of there. But Wellsville, they get Valley Christian this week on Saturday, and that could help them out tremendously if they could pull that win off and slide them up.
The interesting thing with McDonald is that Waterloo game this week, because with Waterloo being a D5 school, you're looking at, what would it be, 4.5 second level points guaranteed, plus anything that you're going to get from the 3 wins that Waterloo has.
Yeah, but those are Jackson Milton, Sebring, and Strasburg Franklin. So,
but remember that it doesn't matter who it is. All it matters is what their division is when you get to that level of the second level points.
7, 7, and 7.
So that's
So
that'd be 9.
10.5.
Is it? Oh yeah.
3.5 each. Yeah.
So I mean, and McDonald's not out of it by any means. Sitting at 19. I mean, they got a shot. But then you look at
and a lot of those schools above them have to play each other in the final weeks of the season here. Like if you look at Toronto, they've got Catholic Central to close the season, and Pymatuning Valley above that, who's sitting up there. Where are they? They're sitting somewhere up there in Division 5, right? Or 4?
Pie Valley.
Yeah, 5.
6 or 5. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with a couple of these schools. Obviously, having to play each other. Matthews has themselves in pretty good shape. They've got a game this week with Wyndham and then Pie Valley. So they could drop too, but it's going to be real interesting to see how the shuffling happens at the bottom part from about 10 to 20 there in
So
Division
how
7.
far of a jump could JFK make if they win out? Because they have Division 3, Cleveland Central Catholic, which they have 2 wins right now.
Yeah,
and then then Southeast,
an undefeated Southeast team. Yeah.
So I mean, and they're sitting at what, 7 or 7?
So there'd be 5.5 points out there for beating Division 3 Cleveland Central Catholic, plus Cleveland Central Catholic's wins, which are over a D2 and a D3. So there's big points out there to be had. And then obviously that Southeast game could really catapult them. I think just kind of looking at the numbers and looking at the math right now, JFK could probably get as high as 2. I don't think that they can overtake Norwalk St. Paul right now.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question for you right now, looking too, because this is we're going into week 9 right now, and you look at Lowellville. Lowellville's sitting at 6-2. They get Middle Ridge this week, but you got to remember a couple weeks ago that they moved that one game from week 10 to week 7. So here's the question: if you're Lowellville, you beat Middle Ridge this week, do you not try to find a game week 10 and just make your divisor by 9 games? And you're sitting in the 8th spot right now, hosting a home game. You maybe move up, being 7-2.
What Malvern does. I would base it on what Malvern does.
Yeah,
because if Malvern wins, they could bump them right onto the 8.
Yeah, because Malvern has Tuskegee Central Catholic and East Canton. East Canton's 4-2. They're fighting for a playoff spot in D6.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, but the thing is, though, if Malvern beats Central Catholic this week, no harm, no foul, because it was a D7 school.
Right.
So, yeah, if Malvern jumps you, but then if you got to look at after this, your points are going to move a little bit. How do you know what, you sit there and go, okay, do we pick somebody up and hope that we win and get to move those points up? Or do we sit there and say, hey, at 7-2, our points are going to be enough to move us into a top 8 spot and host a game?
So I think it's going to depend on about 3 different factors. I think the first one is what's happening around them at that time, and are they a lock for a home game? Are they, potentially going to have to go on the road regardless of what they do? I think it depends a little bit on the health of your team. Obviously in D7, we're talking about programs that don't have huge numbers across the board. And then, I think the third thing is, do they have any good teams out there that are good matchups for them in week 10? I don't think we're going to know that until probably Monday or Tuesday of week 10, when we figure out who's available, who's canceling, who's got COVID, what the situation is. The other thing that I think is going to be interesting to see is, do some of these leagues force week 10 games to change based on where conference things line up? Because if you look at, for example, the MVAC, Springfield has already wrapped up winning the division for the Scarlet tier. Louisville and Western Reserve are tied right now. Are they going to force Louisville and Western Reserve to maybe face opponents that they haven't faced yet in order to figure out who's going to finish second and who's going to finish third?
Yeah, because they played their game on the 1st. Louisville and Western Reserve, they moved that game from week 10. They moved it up, because they had to miss the game with you, Coach, because of some illness. So it's like, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And it's interesting to look at, like, say, Valley Christian right now sitting at 10. Like, do they have enough in their opponents left to get them a home game? Being Wellsville at 3-3, and that's a Division 7 school, and then they got they're going to end East Palestine, who hasn't won a game yet. So does Valley just sit there and they're going to probably just stay on the road? But when they go on the road, where are they going to go? If JFK and Louisville don't move around too much, you could be going to JFK.
Valley has the potential to get as high as 8. With the points that are available and with what the other teams ahead of them face, they could get as high as 7 or 8. So there's potential for them to get a home game. And it honestly might come down to a rematch of last year's first round, Valley Christian and Louisville in the first round again, depending on what happens over these next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, and depending how it all shakes out too. I mean, I think you always got to look at travel. Like, if Valley Christian, we'll say someone drops down and Malvern moves up, and then Valley Christian moves up. If you're Valley Christian, you don't want to take that bus ride down to Malvern, man, because it's long, and that can. I don't want to change it. Changes your game plan, but it throws out routine, and you always want those people to take those longer bus rides coming to you than you have to take going to them. No kid wants to sit there on a bus for 2 hours to try to stay amped up and the whole 9 yards.
And I think what we can guarantee is that if things hold the way that they are right now, absolutely nobody wants to be sitting in that 10 seed and have to see Warren JFK in the first round.
Right. That's
no. Yeah, and and looking at like this week's games, you a lot of teams, you don't want to see a lot of teams overlooking this week, looking into week 10 on whether week 10 could be getting you into the playoffs or winning you a league title or anything like that. Like there's still some good matchups this week that teams, you need to take care of business. Looking at our schedule this week, you don't want to see anybody sit there and go, well, we're in and maybe we should coast a little bit, when you need to make sure you're taking care of business. So,
well, that Louisville Middle Ridge game is all of a sudden one of the better games to watch this week.
It is.
Yeah, and that'll be at Louisville. So, there'll be some good games on the docket here for sure. It'll be interesting to see how our picks go come Friday. But it's time now to get our Joe Dickey. What's your spark? Go ahead, Quinn.
All these things moved on me.
So it is our Joe Dickey, what's your spark, whether it's a positive or a negative. And Quinn, since you've talked so much today, you go first.
All right. So mine's kind of a positive. A couple days ago, me and Coach had a 2-hour phone call trying to figure out all this math and stuff for these points, and stuff like that. So it's been kind of cool seeing how you guys talk about it and stuff. And, me seeing as much as I have. It's been cool seeing how you guys figure it out and stuff like that, and kind of seeing how the math works from behind the scenes sort of thing.
All right, Coach.
Yeah, I think my spark is obviously just going to be a positive spark, and that's that we're getting to almost be at playoff football, and there's no better time of the year for me as a football fan, as a football coach, as just a consumer of high school football. It's the most exciting time of the year, I think.
Thanks, Quinn.
Very delayed back now.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
All right, so it can be positive, it can be negative, depends on how you look at it. Listen, here's the deal: we live in a cruel world. All right, we're seriously toughen up your skin. The deal is, you're going to hear stuff that you don't like. You need to get over it. And no normal person is in love with anybody that's easily offended by everything. And if you're that person, you need to seriously grow up. P.S. Cancel culture sucks. It's weak and it's softer than Roseanne's son.
EB.
We'll go positive spark, maybe 2 of them. Look, it's October 12th. The weather is great. I have a bunch of meat on a smoker. Never going to complain about that. And then for me, it's kind of rivalry week. I think, knock on wood, hopefully all goes well tomorrow. We get to do a little a soccer game, maybe a midweek game of the week for us with Salem girls versus West Branch girls for what always seems to be the rival for some sort of title. And then me and Hoppy get to do another rivalry Friday, Columbiana and Latonia. Generally, I'd like to say both teams probably aren't where they are at as far as record-wise, but, it's always a fun game to be a part of, especially when you're separated by about 2 miles apart. Definitely 2 coaches I look up to a lot with Coach Julia, Coach Spate. So I'm definitely excited to be able to call that game and see how that one plays out.
Yeah, mine's a negative spark too, and I mean it's on the similar lines of what Rob had there. But I mean I'm just tired of we have to go digging into people's pasts. 10, 20 years just to find something so that you can tear that person down. I mean, listen, if there had been cell phones and the things that we have today when, most of us on this panel were in school or doing stuff, we wouldn't be here today. And it's like, listen, your past is your past. And the one guy I was watching said, everything in the dark comes to light, but only if you're digging for it. And if you're trying to find stuff on people, you could find anything you want. I just find it to be ridiculous. It's like, listen, this is the culture we live in, I guess, right now, and we got to get used to it. But I don't like it, and I just find it to be a little ridiculous. So that's my negative spark. So
yeah,
about a minute over.
Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? That's right. So, all right, we thank everybody for tuning in today to Tuesday's edition of the Power Hour. Go ahead, Quinn. Hit the buttons. We'll see you tomorrow.